1998 or Ohio State 2002? Who was more, I don't want to say luck, but who was more, I guess, fortunate to win the national championship that year?
That's a great question. Boy. So to educate the
Arkansas game.
Well, to be fair,
where Martin dropped the ball.
Yeah, sure. You know the fan.
I think Ohio State used to make a touchdown to beat Purdue. I think that was one of the games they had a late touchdown in.
Yeah. So the fan in me, of course, wants to say Tennessee was more lucky. Was the luckier team, but. You know what we try to do here is we try to cut it straight. So I'm trying to do my best to cut it straight. But just to outline that for everybody out there. So in 1998, Tennessee went undefeated. They finished number 1 in the country. They played the BCS championship game, the very first one against Florida State. They won it by a touchdown, 23-16. They won the national championship. That was under T. Martin and Philip Fulmer as quarterback and coach the year after Peyton Manning left as the number 1 overall pick to the NFL. Okay. The Ohio State 2002 team went undefeated, won the national championship at the Fiesta Bowl over Miami, who had won 34 consecutive games. So the fortunate plays for Tennessee off the top of my head that year, they actually went to take on Syracuse and Donovan McNabb early in the season. And had it not been for a 4th down pass interference call against Syracuse, I was watching the game, very questionable call, Tennessee would have lost the very first game of the season. So there's one. Number 2 is the one that you allude to. Arkansas was winning in Knoxville, was just running out the clock, just needed a first down or 2. I don't remember exactly the time left, but there was like 2 minutes, 2.5 minutes, something in that range, 90 seconds, and Arkansas's got a lead. A very good Arkansas team with Clint Sterner at quarterback that played Michigan in the Citrus Bowl that year. Houston Nutt as head coach. And this is where I distinguish luck from fortune or making the play. It's one thing to win a close game, but for your players to make plays versus to kind of be handed a gift. And in this case, you get the pass interference call against Syracuse at the Carrier Dome. And in this game, you had not a Tennessee player like a Leonard Little or an Al Wilson making a great play. You had Clint Sterner just drop the ball without being touched, just lay the ball on the field basically at about the 50-yard line. And then Tennessee scored to win the game. I'm trying to think of any other real close.
Martin dropped the ball.
Pardon me?
Steve Martin at Arkansas put the ball on the ground, if I'm not mistaken.
Clint Sterner did.
Steve Martin didn't do that too?
T. Martin also fumbled the ball?
Yeah, I thought he fumbled the ball also.
Yeah, I don't remember that. I just remember the Sterner play. But
yeah, I think, if I'm not mistaken, if you go back and look at the end of the game, there was a time that Steve Martin should have been down. His knee was down, and his hand was on the ball, and it should have been counted as being down, but it didn't count. I think that's what happened. Another thing I want to point out about that season, I think when they played Florida State, they played with their 3rd-string quarterback.
Yeah, I was going to get to that one. I was still on my way through the season. So, yeah, I was actually at the SEC championship game, covering the SEC championship game in which a pretty poor Mississippi State team, and when I say poor, they were obviously a good team, but not good for SEC championship game standards. They went 8-5 that year. So they lost 5 games. They led Tennessee 14-10 with about 6 or 7 minutes left in the game. And then Peerless Price got loose for a touchdown on a bomb. And the Mississippi State quarterback, Wayne Madkin, threw a bad interception that Tennessee turned into a late touchdown to seal it over Mississippi State and go on to the BCS championship game. And as you're mentioning, Florida State lost both its 1st and 2nd string quarterbacks. And, oh, my goodness, can somebody look this up for me? I can't think of the name of the 3rd string quarterback.
I can't think of
it.
Was it Rick?
No. It was not somebody that played much at all besides that game. those were the fortunate moments for Tennessee that season. For Ohio State in 2002, yes, they won a series of close games. They almost lost to Cincinnati that year at Paul Brown Stadium, or whatever they called it at the time, Riverfront Stadium, Synergy Field, whatever it was, in Cincinnati. Actually, Chris Gamble had to intercept a pass in the end zone to preserve a win there. They had a series of close games, but the game that you're alluding to, they were down to Purdue 6-3 in the fourth quarter, and Jim Tressel went completely against his reputation on a 4th and 1 at midfield with about 2 minutes left, where you would have thought they would have handed the ball to the running back. Maurice Clarett was obviously the guy that year to try to pick up the first down. They went for it, and Michael Jenkins got behind the defense. Brent Musburger yelled out, "Holy Buckeye," and they scored a touchdown to win the game over Purdue. They had a 2 overtime game against Illinois, a pretty marginal Illinois team. They played a lot of close games. They only beat Michigan 14-9, but then they put it all together against Miami. And I will say that I'm pretty confident that if you look at NFL talent, that the Ohio State team was quite a bit superior to the Tennessee team.
Right. I probably agree with that, David, but like you said, Chris Gamble, I ain't going to sit up and say I knew who else was there, but they had a pretty good quarterback, but pretty good team, but they just was a tough team that just ran the ball a lot.
There it is. We can thank Chris Kennedy. There it is. Marcus Outson. Yes, that was the Florida State. I had all these O and U's and Z's in my brain, and I couldn't remember exactly the name. Marcus Outson was the Florida State quarterback. So you're talking about it's one thing if he was the third string quarterback, like before his time when he was a freshman, but he turned out to be a great quarterback or something like that. But we're talking about a guy that, other than starting the national championship game, was a complete non-factor his entire career. So Florida State was really behind the 8 ball in that game, and Tennessee beat them 23-16.
Right. Yeah, so I don't go with Tennessee too.
I think it's certainly debatable. I'm not saying it's some kind of slam dunk answer on my part, but I do think that Ohio State had more talent on that team. Everybody that played on that Ohio State defense had, I don't want to say significant NFL careers, but they went to the NFL and they played. They were on teams and played. Everybody on the defense.
Right. Yeah, that's what I was thinking too. Last question, man. Because we're talking about Tennessee. I know when I was coming up in the 90s, Tennessee played a lot of teams out of California. Was that where they were getting their talent for? I know people remember Peyton Manning came from Mississippi. But was that where they recruited most of their talent at the time from?
So you're talking about they played a home and home series with UCLA. I remember that. They played a home and home with Cal. So you're talking about those series.
Yeah, were they recruiting out there at that time? That's where they get most of their talent from?
I can't really answer that question. I don't remember.
I don't remember Fearless Price or any of them in the front. So that's why I asked. Fearless Price and was Lewis on that team? Was the running back, was it Lewis at that time?
Oh, Jamal Lewis. Wait a second. They had, I think Jamal Lewis was after that. Let's see, that was the 98 team. That's a great question because Jamal Lewis obviously played in the 2000 Super Bowl for the Baltimore Ravens. But for some reason, I think he should have been on that team, but I thought Travis Henry was the starting running back. They might have had both of those guys, but they did have Travis Henry and probably Jamal Lewis on that 98 team. They almost would have had to have had Jamal Lewis in 98. Yep. And they also had Marcus Nash, who turned out to be a bust in the NFL, but he was a first-round pick by the Broncos.
Right. Yeah. I remember that team, but like I said, He should have been called down. So that's what I thought happened in that game also. But I know they were lucky to win the game.